Hey everyone, welcome to Chat B2B, the podcast that gives you a front row seat to AI and B2B marketing. I'm your host, Andrew Au, co-CEO of Intercept, and today's guest is Audrey Davidson. She heads up integrated marketing for the Americas at Microsoft. In our conversation, Audrey explains Microsoft's Frontier Firm, the idea of bringing AI agents and human marketers together as a hybrid team. She demystifies Copilot and explains how to get the most out of these tools, and she helps leaders understand how to bring their team along the AI adoption journey. If you like what you hear, don't forget to follow or subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. This is Chat B2B. Let's get into it. So, Audrey, you lead integrated marketing for the Americas at Microsoft, which is obviously a pretty vast organization. And one of the questions I had for you is, can you just share how AI is changing the way that you think about sort of marketing team structures and, you know, what we do day to day as marketers, whether that is like directly within your team or, you know, as you hear from other Microsoft customers, like how are they thinking about it? Would love to get your take on that.
Yeah, sure. I think it's a great question. And I'm going to go back a little bit because I think in relation to marketing as just a function, I've always believed that critical thinking was what sets good marketers apart from great, or, you know, kind of the good from the great.
Yep.
And, you know, when we think about the value we bring in our worth, it's not in the volume of the work we produce, but it's the value we deliver. And, you know, that's really requires critical and lateral thinking. And
Yep.
so, you know, when I think about AI, you know, while yes, it can simulate parts of judgment, it can prioritize our leads, it can, you know, surface behavioral patterns, optimize creative through testing and, you know, things we've spoken about in some recent meetings.
Yeah.
It's not the same as critical thinking, right? And
Yep.
AI really, you know, can apply the rules, but a human applies the reasoning. And so I think AI doesn't weigh that long-term strategy, brand reputation, those ethical trade-offs. And, you know, so I think what's changing is that AI is handling more of the execution while humans, the people, are leaning into more of that, you know, kind of orchestration, the analysis, the decision-making that's really going to drive that true impact.
Yeah. Do you find that, you know, maybe reskilling or at least refreshing on some of that critical thinking skills is needed for marketers? Because I feel like we've gotten so used to doing the stuff that then you take it away and you're kind of like, oh, right, I got to really focus on that piece. And that's not an easy piece to do, right? The critical thinking and
No, that's the hard bit. Yeah. Absolutely. I think that's 100% where, you know, kind of reskilling and where, you know, even as leaders, that's where I'm starting to pressure test because, you know, I think, you know, kind of over the course of digital marketing, you know, kind of taking the lead in the marketing that we do, we've become, you know, kind of, I guess, automated even as humans to be doing things faster and quicker and whatnot. And sometimes, you know, we're not thinking about, you know, left to right, as well as, you know, kind of that, the long and the short of it. So critical thinking 100% is a valuable skill to upskill.
Yeah, and it's hard. It's one of those like harder to teach, right? I think too. I mean, so in terms of marketing org sort of structures, are you seeing like any new roles pop up or even new sort of sub departments in marketing, or is that too early? What's your thought on that in terms of like how the marketing team is designed?
Yeah, I mean, I think it is too early, but I do anticipate that, you know, like if we're gonna kind of redraw that org chart, that the biggest shifts are gonna be that those execution heavy roles will shrink and those orchestration judgment based roles will grow. Is I think AI becomes embedded into workflows, you know, kind of handling optimization and that kind of decision making support be enhanced. I think what's, again, when we think about critical thinking, the strategists, orchestrators, data storytellers are, you know, going to become increasingly more important. And then some new roles that could be emerging are going to be, you know, instead of prompt engineers, maybe it's prompt librarians. Or if you think about SEO, like, we saw new roles emerge when search became, kind of a big part of what we do. And so I think, thinking about prompts differently
Yeah.
is probably something. And then, AI, maybe orchestrators of, kind of those, even agents, right? Like when we think
Yeah.
about how agents become team members.
I'm going to ask you about that sort of frontier firm in a second, because I know that that's all about human and agents coming together. Before I ask you that, I was having a chat the other day with somebody about who's going to be more in demand. Is it the generalist that is orchestrating specialist, and to your point, that might be an AI agent, that might not be a person always,
Yeah.
or is it like the specialist who knows the craft really well, like knows the job, how to do it, and can essentially multiply themselves to an extent, right? To generate more and do more with less. I don't know. Looking ahead, what do you think is more valuable? Is it the generalist that can orchestrate, or is it the specialist that can like go deep dive in like this concept of multiplying yourself? Do you have
I mean,
a stance on that?
I I'm gonna go. It depends, and it really depends on human, because I think it's that human discernment in any role that's gonna get valuable. And so, while generalists can orchestrate across the outputs and specialists can scale their crafts exponentially, what really is gonna set it apart is, again, that ability to think critically, and that
Yeah.
ability to kind of intersect where AI stops, or where
Yeah.
AI is maybe not quite fitting what you had intended, kind of the initial input to that output to reflect.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a great point. I mean, when you have access to all of the knowledge of humanity, then it becomes taste and decision making. And that's, to your earlier points, humans got to be sort of in control of that and making those, or calling those shots.
Yeah,
Um,
I was fortunate to be at Cannes this year, and
yeah.
the human element of AI was just everywhere and huge. And I think that, for good reason, because, and maybe, as AI evolves, I mean, AI has been around for many, many, many years, but now it's time in the sun, right? But, as it further advances, maybe we're going to, 100% evolve this conversation. But, I still think that critical thinking, the human element, especially when we think about creative, when we think about,
Yes.
connecting to emotions, and, being able to put the audience at the center and tap into, those emotions and behaviors. AI can help get us there, but it's going to be the humans that really, kind of take it over the edge.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. So I'm gonna come to that frontier firm question that I had for you, which is, I'd love for you to maybe to first kind of like explain that concept, and from my vantage point, it's all around human and AI teams coming together, these sort of concept of a hybrid team. So maybe if you could explain that to the folks listening, and then maybe just how you see it kind of playing out in a marketing specific context. So yeah, go for it.
Okay, sure. So Microsoft's frontier firm concept, it's really about building organizations around, like you said, the human and AI teams. And so in marketing, what that really means is, AI isn't just a tool, it's a teammate.
Yes.
Marketers are becoming agent bosses. So, if we think about that traditional, manager IC structure, well, IC are now also bosses, right? Or also of agents. And
Yeah.
if we think about that in terms of directing AI agents to handle tasks like campaign briefs or social copy, performance analysis, kind of all of the, kind of major things in our toolkit, that's a part of that, relationship. But I think, again, the key, AI doesn't replace critical thinking. And so
Right.
it's going to amplify it. And it's going to, I think to a certain degree, in terms of how we're using it right now, the output is only going to be as good as the input. No different than you think about a traditional briefing process, in the manual sense, garbage in, garbage out. And so I think the same can apply with prompts. The same can apply with how you design your agents, and kind of how you're setting that structure, what they need to do. And so we still need humans to ask the right questions, to challenge those assumptions, to make those judgment calls. And then AI can generate the options that we can sift through and then make, the decision making around that supports, our strategy and make sure we're on the right path. So I think that, when we think about the frontier firm and we think about marketing and we think about, kind of the teams and what we've just spoke about in this conversation, it's really about being rewired, not replaced, right? That rise of the human and AI collaboration is really creating hybrid roles that are going to, kind of blend all, kind of parts of marketing to be more efficient, more agile, and give us, research on tap.
Yeah, research on tap, knowledge on tap. I what I love about the framework is that it is human first, but AI forward.
Yes.
And I think that that is very different than others that I've seen out there being AI first. And I do think that humanity needs to be the priority. We need to benefit from this. And I really like that. And I really like that concept of sort of AI bosses, humans as AI bosses. And what a good opportunity for, as you said, somebody that maybe is newer in the workforce, that's a little bit more junior organization. I don't know. I kind of think it would make them a better manager at some point. Like if you know how to, be a boss of AI agents and AI tools, and you got to give it context and give it feedback. Yeah. I don't know. I kind of see it as a training ground for management.
100%. Yeah. I completely agree. And I think being able to embrace it and not be afraid of it is huge. And I think that, again, thinking about walk before you run.
Yeah.
For people to embrace, kind of an agent, and for that agent to, kind of deliver on what they need it to do, they have to do all those things that you just said. And then coming out of that will be exactly that, like these, skills that will only up level, kind of folks as they advance their careers.
Awesome. I wanted to ask you a little bit about Copilot, and as you know, I get the chance to talk at different conferences, always around AI and AI B2B marketing, and any of our examples are Copilot powered, as you know, building custom Copilots and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I find that there's a lot of curiosity with Copilot, and I feel that some of the users are just scratching the surface with like getting summaries of their meetings and teams and stuff like that, which is great and super helpful. I do find that people are like, there's some confusion over like, wait, which Copilot is which? And if you can just help kind of demystify that one, explain a little bit on like the multiple Copilots, and then what marketers, really should know in terms of like which ones are most useful for them. I think that'd be super helpful.
Sure, you bet. I think it's a great question, and definitely one I hear often as well. I think that Copilot is one of the most exciting, transformative innovations, if you will, in AI right now. And it is a term I think that gets used differently in different contexts, but it's also quite simple. I think, at its core, Copilot is Microsoft's AI assistant designed to help us work smarter, across, kind of the tools that we're using every day. Our mission at Microsoft is to help every person, everyone on the planet achieve more. And so that's essentially, at its root, what Copilot is doing.
Yeah.
So for marketers, if I think, what's the most relevant, it's going to be Copilot for M365, which is really, the Copilots that are embedded into Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Outlook, and Teams.
Right.
And so, it's going to help with content creation. It's going to help with meeting summaries, data analysis. Again, however you're using those, kind of different platforms, it's going to help as your assistant in that platform. Then we've got Sales and Service Copilot, which is the Copilot that's going to be built right into D365, which is really helping with customer engagement.
Yep.
And there's Microsoft Advertising. So the Copilot in Microsoft Advertising platform is assisting with that campaign creation and optimization. Then there's also custom Copilots, which are built with Copilot Studio. And so they make sense when you're, looking to tailor experiences, like integrating, unique data sources or automating specific, marketing workflows. I think, personally, the Copilot I use day in, day out is in Teams.
Yes.
helping me stay on top of conversations, prep for meetings, keep momentum across campaigns. But then there's also the external web, Copilot. So if I'm looking to aggregate or, kind of for any kind of input across the web, it's going to help me there too. I use it for, everything almost every day. It's helped me craft, kind of any type of copy, you name it.
And I think this is, one of the key things that I explain to people, and as you've, broken it down here is, Copilot is embedded into kind of the apps that you already use for working. And I think one of the advantages, and not a plug, I mean, this is objectively speaking, is that if you're working in another AI platform that you're getting content, let's say, you're kind of, copying and pasting it back and forth between, versus I think having it embedded in the workflow. I think there's, some efficiency that you gain from that, but probably also some security too, I would imagine, because if everything's kind of running on the same stack. So,
yeah. And I think also the other piece of it that's quite fantastic is it gets to know you, right?
Right.
It also gets to know, kind of your ecosystem, your sphere. So, if I'm, drafting copy and I want it to be something that resonates with my boss, and I include that in my prompt, then it's going to understand how she's thinking, how she, likes to receive information, and it's going to help me craft, kind of that message to be, kind of bang on to be related, kind of relevant for her.
So that's actually a use case that somebody internally has done is created a Copilot for actually of a specific, persona in the org, so that when they're presenting ideas and stuff to that person, it actually takes their style so that they know how to best land things. So, I mean, this is an example, and I mentioned sort of custom Copilots. You could really tune them for specific use cases. So something we would recommend, and I think there's a bunch of learning resources that we can put in the show notes too, because there's tons of training content. I think it's just a matter of sifting through what's going to make sense for you. But I know that's super helpful. You mentioned cans that you were there, and obviously cans in my mind is associated with creativity. And I think there's a counterbalance to this of like AI is going to make marketers more efficient. How do we just make sure that the creativity doesn't get lost in the pursuit for this? We could do it more efficiently, How do we also do it more creatively? I think is I think going to be one of the challenges, is the balancing both. So I don't know if you have a perspective on that. How do we not lose sight of the fact that we still need creativity, even though we want to be more efficient and more productive?
Well, at the risk of being a broken record, I'm going to say, I really think you're a great example of, kind of critical thinking being the bridge. Like leaders really encouraging teams to use AI outputs as inputs for exploration, not endpoints, right? And so AI is it's going to accelerate the process. But again, it's that human reasoning, the imagination that's really going to deliver those breakthrough ideas, and that human connection that's going to get to that relevance and resonance.
Yeah, we really can't lose sight of that human side of it. And I think that's reassuring, particularly coming from you as, a leader within an organization that's building the tools that people are somewhat fearful to say, oh, will that automate me out of a job? I think it is refreshing to hear your take on just, it's coming back to humanity, the human skills, the creativity, the critical thinking. I mean, I think that's reassuring for people.
I think it's the other thing for, people that maybe don't live in tech, right? Is that there is a huge human component to it. And I think that's where it's just almost table stakes for us. Like, it's not something, that we ever doubted or questioned. And so I think it's interesting to hear your point. Because I don't think that's, kind of something that, I was surprised, for example, going into Cannes and, kind of the human element being so big, where it's like, of course the human element's there,
right.
And so I think to reassure that, and to have, and I think the best way for people to really, kind of not be fearful is to dive in and to adopt and to use, and again, use that human discernment and bring, kind of the value that, you have in any role that you hold to the forefront of what you're using AI to help, kind of get you to.
Yeah, 100%. So let's say, marketers are on board and they want to be able to build a case for, let's say, Copilot as an example, and to be able to get that access to these additional tools, this unlock within the suite they're already working. I feel like there's, maybe 2 years ago, you tagged AI onto it, you'd probably get budget to, some sort of proof of concept or something. I feel like now there's a lot of scrutiny, right? And I guess, do you have any guidance for marketers that are, being pressured to say what's the ROI of Copilot? How do you kind of communicate the impact of some of these investments when in some cases it's not always so easy to quantify? What are your thoughts on that? How do marketers get through that conversation?
And I mean, I think that really is, kind of elevating that strategic conversation of being able to connect the dots between those efficiency gains and the broader outcomes, right? So I think like broader outcomes, whether they're customer engagement, brand strength, creative quality, how, the gains from AI are kind of helping drive those things. I think that, again, the value of AI is only realized when we can interpret and communicate its impact in a way that the business cares about. Right. So I think sometimes it's also like smoke and mirrors, right? Like, let's not let the new shiny object get in the way, or, kind of the hesitation of that new shiny object get in the way of the business outcomes and what the business cares about.
Yeah, I think it's a really good reminder that you got to find the right outcomes that you're attaching it to, and not just we want the tool for the sake of using AI. And I feel that is I don't know, it sounds like an obvious thing, but I think it's missed.
Mm-hmm.
It's easy to just want to get the latest shiny tool, but do you have a clear use case for it? And how do you build the business case? So,
yeah, and I think that's where, like, when you just even look across like the marketing organization, and where there's just, for me, for example, every day when I'm hearing of things that maybe, kind of creating churn or causing some problems, I'm like, can we have an agent help here so that we can get out of, the tensions that are happening between teams and the frustrations that, are happening due to workload increases, that, if we can bring AI in, like, an AI agent, or, kind of use AI in the way that is going to benefit, the health of the team, as well as, kind of the production of the team, then, we must do it.
Yeah, I agree. It's like, what are the blockers? Let's find them, and let's have an AI agent tackle them, because let's face it, there's probably parts of the job that aren't people's favorites. And every role, doesn't matter how junior or senior it is. And I think there's also probably an aspect of impact on the labor market, but I also think there is underemployment as well, where I always, hear about the skills gaps and the gaps in specific roles that we can't hire. Yeah. And so I don't know. I think there's opportunity there, but it is mixed with emotion of fear, right?
Yeah, no, it's true. And I think that's, where kind of the best way is through it, right? And I think that being able to try and embrace and, kind of control the controllables. But when we think about, over, post-pandemic anyways, the whole do more with less attitude that, a lot of us, have been forced to kind of live through. AI is your best friend, and you think about when you can embrace it and help, kind of automate and, kind of do things in your daily role, that can help advance you in your career. It's, it's win-win for me.
Yeah. And to the point on do more with less, I think we've been pushed really on this. We have to do more with less consistently. And at some point, it's not humanly possible to do more with less. And this is where AI needs to come in, right? And not to replace, but to kind of augment.
That's right.
So if we look, let's look ahead. And I was going to say 5 years, but maybe that's too far out because we don't even know what 5 years is going to look like. Maybe if we say the next like 2 or 3 years, and you were to kind of, you know, if you could redraw the marketing org, what would be like kind of the key differences? I mean, are there different roles that you see or workflows or even just a different structure for a team maybe that you see sort of evolving?
Yeah, I mean, I think that team structures will, be more fluid, project based, have less that rigidity in hierarchy, more cross functional squads, perhaps, form
Say that.
like opportunities. And I'm, what's coming to mind, kind of at the top of my head is like the sprint mentality, right? And the agile marketing. I could see more of that. You've got kind of squads forming, opportunities, kind of are being worked through and then dissolve when that work is complete. And so it's really about a smarter organization, I think, being more focused again on the value that kind of humans are going to bring to AI that, and not bring to AI, but bring to our workload that,
Yeah.
really replicate. And, I think in marketing, it's judgment, it's strategic insight, and being able to, I've always said to my teams, like marketing is a cost center. And so we have to be always showing and delivering value, right? And so
Yep.
when we think about AI and marketing, let's not be fearful of it. But again, it goes back to the value and all of the, kind of strengths that we have as marketers when it comes to creativity, understanding the audience, kind of knowing, kind of the needs, that human connection, emotional connection.
Yeah.
All those really rich insights when you think about the qualitative analysis that AI really isn't going to, I haven't seen come through yet.
Yeah. Something I was just thinking as you're mentioning marketing as a cost center is that I think with AI, marketing really can be a revenue driver. I mean, we know marketing is a revenue driver. However, it's hard for us to prove that today. And I think that maybe with AI, we can
Seen as a cost center, I should say. That's
exactly. And so I think, how do we elevate marketing, the impact of marketing? How do we articulate that, prove that through data? I think that might be one of the unlocks of AI, because if we all say that we're customer centric as an organization, then marketing should lead, and it isn't always the case. It does have that perception of like, as a cost center, how do we change that perception?
Yeah, and I think that's where data-driven insights, being able to get richer and quicker in the insights that, we're able to gather, and then how we, interpret that into action. AI is enabling us to do that much quicker, right?
Yeah. And I really liked your point on the cross-functional teams, because I think that, in any large organization, the challenge is going to be silos.
Yeah.
And individual teams. And if you could bring people together, I mean, even particularly even just sales and marketing, if we could bring that together and work in that sort of scrum mentality, that sprint mentality, the sprint approach, I think we could probably get a lot more done a lot faster. So I like that idea.
Yeah.
Hopefully that's a reality. Again, continuing on this theme of the human side of this all. AI, like any technology, the success of adoption is going to come down to the culture of a company, how you think about change management. I guess my question on this is, how do you bring people along this journey emotionally? Like, how do you build trust with them and address that fear that is this good for me or not? In terms of my job? And what's your perspective on that? Like, how do you get this right? Because I feel like a lot of companies are not, frankly, getting this right.
Well, and I think often what happens is there's an expectation that it's going to happen quicker than the reality of what, kind of humans require for change.
Right.
And when I think about, kind of the culture and the change management that's required around AI adoption, it's kind of the technology is the easy part. It's the people side part, right? And so when we think about the first step here, when I, kind of look at how we've rolled out even Copilot in the last year, for example,
Right.
transparency is, kind of key. It's just being able to help people understand, why we're introducing AI and kind of what it means for them.
Yep.
And then, I think the other piece of that is that, kind of a focus on showing, not just telling. So being able to, again, pilot those real use cases so teams can experience the value firsthand.
Yeah.
When someone can really see how much time they save or how quickly they can get, from idea to draft, then
Yes.
these starts outweighing the fear.
Yeah.
I think also what I mentioned earlier is just having, ensuring that leaders are using the tools themselves and, really modeling that adoption is going to build the credibility. We've really tried to make it fun. So,
Yep.
creating little challenges. We ran for my direct kind of team, my function integrated marketing, a 30-day challenge where we had different prompts every day and people just shared what they, kind of what they found out and
Very cool.
how they, kind of then took that into something they did in their, whether it was their personal life or their work life. So, it was lighthearted. It wasn't a mandate, but it was something to get people used to it. We also have, leaderboards on usage. And so,
Interesting.
while that could be perceived as, big brother watching, it's not. It's more like we're trying to encourage adoption. And so then our competitive spirit gets out because I'm like, I want my org to be, number one. I don't want my, peers org to be beating.
Right.
So, we have fun with it. And I think then what ends up happening is, there are people that embrace it more than others, and they're able then to, kind of be the champs within the organization. And it's then also greater when you have a peer champ versus, just leadership champs. And, I have someone on the team who has really adopted agents, and she's, created a lot of efficiency in, her workload. And we're now looking at rolling that out, kind of across the greater marketing organization. So then there's even greater operational efficiencies, and she's being recognized for that. And others are looking to be like her as well. So I think there's lots of great ways to.
There's a lot in there. First of all, I want to acknowledge just like reminder to have fun too. Like, yes, this is
have fun,
right? You got to, it doesn't always have to be so, it can be lighthearted too. The 30-day challenge is really cool. And I think empowering people to get hands-on, and that example of, built I'm assuming a custom Copilot, but being able to now roll that out to the org, that's a really cool achievement.
Totally.
For somebody on the team.
Yeah.
I want to go back to the transparency thing that you mentioned. Were there any not maybe concerns, but like questions, themes that kept coming up, like as the team was asking, like what were some of those common things, or did anything surprise you from some of the feedback or questions from the team?
No, I mean, and it might be different because we are Microsoft and Copilot's a product. So there's a different level of excitement to it. I think that if anything, it's just, kind of always what comes up is security, in terms of like, it is what I'm asking, could it be harmful or things like that. Again, I think it's just, again, using it. It's not anything that I think back to any type of tech adoption, in my career too, it's no different, right? In terms of anything in the last 25 years. But I think it's just if anything, it's hesitancy that I saw, and being able to just really encourage that, you'll get out of it what you put into it, and to, try.
Yeah. And I think too, the piece on, trying and getting hands-on, and I know I've said this before, but you need those stories and the lived experiences and the hands-on experiences to build trust. Because I think that if you wait, and a lot of companies wait until they say, I've got a test group and I want to get that like 500% gain, and this, that, the other. It's like, it never happens. And like, unless you story, like we're marketers, we need to internally story tell,
Absolutely.
right?
Yeah.
To build that momentum. Otherwise you're waiting forever to get the numbers you want,
And I think that's how you get better at prompting. When we first started, people were I work in an America's organization. I'm, kind of the comedian on the team. I'm in a meeting and I'm asking Copilot, I'm putting a prompt in and I'm saying please and thank you. And some of my peers from, other countries are saying, why are you saying please? I'm like, well, it's Copilot. But then what we learned, even from some of the prompt engineers and, even another talk I was at with Wharton was, the nicer you are to it. And if you let, kind of the Gen AI know kind of the sentiments, what you're looking for, you're going to get better responses. And it was true. And so I encourage everyone to use their pleases and thank yous when they're
that's
putting their
that's practical advice, right?
Yeah.
Because I think you're right. I have read that too from other reports, might have been the same one around, if you are more pleasant, you're going to get a better output. And I wonder if that's because the agent is like, when you're nice, they're playing to win in a way, versus if you're really mean, it's like you're playing not to lose. Like they're trying to be just more factual and accurate, as opposed to maybe pushing it more, like, because the rewards are different. I don't know.
kind of equate it to like open and closed ended questions, right? Like if you ask closed one, you're going to get a blunt response. But if it's open, then it's a bit more conversational. And I don't know.
That's a good way to put it. Yeah. So then if you're a marketing leader that says, hey, I'm interested, I want to be able to advance our journey, I want to get our teams AI ready, might feel a little bit stuck because it's maybe a big org, or they might feel that it's really complex. I don't know, what's kind of a go-do for them, or a piece of advice you'd have for them to get unstuck? Because I feel people feel stuck.
My advice would be don't overcomplicate it. I think, start small, ground your team in the belief that critical thinking is the differentiator. I think that AI is going to keep evolving. It's only as valuable as the human judgment applied to it. And so I think that the leaders who succeed will be the ones who anchor their teams in that truth.
I love it. I want to bring that back to, you mentioned like AI is no different than other pieces of technology, right? It's let's not overcomplicate this. Great, super practical. I love it. Audrey, thank you so much for joining us. I know you're a busy woman, so I'll let you get back to your day job.
It's been a great conversation. Thank you, Andrew.
Thanks, Audrey.